So this week we're just going to focus on one specific thing, the thing that I think made this episode so masterful, the big change from the game. No, it's not making Sam deaf, although that is a brilliant touch that felt human, I think. I'm particularly glad they didn't make it feel gimmicky through some scene of Sam not hearing infected sneaking up on him or something. No, that was good, but the change that makes this work so well is Ellie trying to heal Sam with her blood. Perfect for so many reasons, it adds so many layers that you might not have noticed, and we're going to go through all of them. There's one particularly big reason that would be spoilers if you haven't played the game, so I'm going to leave that one till the end and warn you before we get there, okay? Let's get going though. Firstly, the more minor obvious point to begin. This reminds you that Ellie is still just a child. I talked about this before in my episode 4 video, the blurred, sometimes paradoxical split you get between Ellie and Sam. On the one hand being children who draw and laugh and play, for which the symbolism of placing them into this school classroom is brilliant, and on the other hand they're not ordinary children. They've grown up in a much more brutal world. Some of our main conflict last episode was built around Joel seeing Ellie like an innocent child, like Sarah, and Ellie reminding us that whilst she is partly that, she's also not. Brian wasn't her first kill, this is a very different girl. And I would have liked to have seen more conflict around that in episode 4, but we do get more exploration here through her relationship to Sam, all culminating in a wonderfully wishful hope that maybe my blood will cure him. And in a way she's being incredibly grown up, acting like a mother figure to Sam here, a reassuring adult who takes in awful news that could have panicked anyone, and she is calm and receptive and playing the role of a carer we haven't seen from her before. But at the same time, it's also the exact sort of idea a child might have. It feels a little like the many instances I've had in therapy sessions where children play at being doctors. It's both of those things really, and the blood doesn't work that way. She is immune, there's a slight chance it could help produce a vaccine, but it's not an outright cure. As much as The Last of Us is about a hardened Joel becoming more open, it's also about Ellie growing up, and the struggle around that. This kind of struggle is exactly what we need to see. The second point is that you remember Ellie's blood being a potential cure is the entire point of this journey, of this plot. So seeing her fail to cure Sam now just raises a doubt in her mind. What if it won't work when I reach the Fireflies? What if we can't produce a cure? What if this whole journey amounts to nothing? A doubt I strongly suspect is now going to start playing on her mind in future episodes and having an effect, and this is a really organic, impactful way to raise that idea, especially when, depending on how this show does end, that could even be foreshadowing. The third point, it's the catalyst for us to finally see some of Ellie's vulnerability peeking through now. Yes, she's a girl who's grown up familiar with this brutal post-apocalypse, but that does not mean she doesn't still have vulnerabilities. We've seen a lot of vulnerability from Joel. We saw a tiny glimpse from Ellie in episode 4, but the camera work there kept us distant from it. It wasn't the main focus there. Now, finally, we get to see a much less chirpy side to her appearing though. I mean, we've all known there's depth to her beyond the chirpiness, part of which is probably a defense of hers, so effective that it even confuses Sam.
Do I not look scared?
Great parallels to the earlier moment with Henry there as well.
Scorpions!
But as an audience, we've really needed to connect with Ellie's emotions, which could have been done in a lot of different ways. Here she finishes the episode worn and brooding. The cut from this carnage to their safety was sudden, as though shutting it all out. But the cut from Henry to this now is less jarring. She can't quite shut it out. Then we get a close-up of her. Her feelings are now finally given the centre stage, and I love that. Anyone who says Bella Ramsey is a terrible actress is just plain wrong, in my opinion. Because what is it really that leaves her so hurt at the end of this episode? She writes the message here: I'm sorry, feeling that her blood failed him, possibly also that she failed to reach him quick enough during the fight. It's not her fault, really, but my god is that going to weigh on her. All the talk last episode was about heroes, wasn't it? Tommy and the Fireflies being heroes. Super Sam now. Maybe we can't be heroes to save everyone. Maybe we sometimes fail. Then what happens to us? Do we lose our way and fall into the sort of dark past that Joel alludes to having? Do we fall into the sort of vendetta that Kathleen does? If we can't quite be heroes, then what do we become? I think it has taken slightly too long for the show to peel away some of Ellie's exterior, as evidenced by the fact there are a lot of people who find her insufferable. I don't, but to credit Craig and Neil here, they waited for something big, something really impactful before they let us into Ellie's internal world, something that would hit her like a hammer, and my god does this scene hit. And it hits twice as hard when you know Ellie's past, so right before we dip into spoiler territory, I'm going to add a tangent point just because I want to say it. It's really cool seeing this episode begin with the people's uprising against Vendla, then flipped on its head with the infected's uprising against the people. I really liked that, and you know, if Henry, as Kathleen sees it, damns them all by placing his needs for Sam ahead of their greater cause, then Kathleen too placed her vendetta and her grief for her brother ahead of their cause, so that's a nice parallel. But if you don't want spoilers, either click off this now or skip to this timestamp, spoilers for the game and specifically the DLC add-on Left Behind. Okay, shooting Brian was not Ellie's first time shooting a person, which I think tells us Ellie shot Riley earlier in the story. The two of them got bitten by infected. Rather than killing themselves, Riley suggested it would be more poetic to just wait it out and lose their minds together, except Ellie never lost hers. She was immune. And it all suggests that when Riley turned, Ellie was forced to shoot her, which is absolutely tragic. And in that context, Sam is Ellie's chance to fix that, to resolve a lot of that trauma through healing Sam instead of the same situation repeating. So of course she tries to heal him, the way she wishes she had healed Riley. The fact she attempts this with Sam, the idea coming to her so quickly as well, tells you it's probably been on her mind for a long time. She could have been thinking to herself a lot that if I had known I was immune back then, could I have saved Riley, maybe if I'd wiped my blood into her wound. So this was her chance now, and it fails. The tragedy of Riley repeats again, and that means feeling the pain not just of Sam, but also Riley all over again. Sam turns, and Henry shoots him, then shoots himself. Ellie is left saying only, "I'm sorry." And then she moves on quite abruptly. Joel hovers behind now as a complete reversal for how Joel moved on abruptly and Ellie hovered behind after Tess's death, so that's wonderful. So that was a very fitting spoiler. There's a lot more I could have unpacked this episode. It's a psychologically rich one, I think, but I've been ill. I've gotten around to watching it far too late to make a big video quick enough for it to still be relevant, but maybe I'll add some extra thoughts on Patreon. Like the video if you enjoyed this, it does genuinely make a difference. Comment your thoughts, good or bad, I'm always interested. Yeah, subscribe or check the playlist for my other videos on this show, support me on Patreon if you like, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Luke Core, Tree Chukaba, Michael Gallagher, In Squares, Flying Spider, Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier and Jab Bramwell. Thank you.